Alex Pereira does it again. The heavy-handed Brazilian delivered another incredible highlight for us, this time with his legs. Broken toes be damned. Eat this shin, foot, whatever it was, Mr. Prochazka. Simply amazing. What this man has done since April of 2023, holy cow. That's when they were scraping him off the octagon, by the way. That's one hell of a turnaround. But let's hear from the experts. Your reaction to Alex Pereira winning by KO. Mike, you were there. Let's give you the first take.
Yeah, what a brilliant, brutal finish, and even more impressive by what he said at the post-fight press conference, right? That he kind of set up this head kick as a tactic after seeing Jiri Prohazka's warm-up video in his locker room. It wasn't originally part of the game plan, and he thought he was going to overthink the low kicks and then went up high. I mean, it seems simple on the outside, but elite fight IQ, right? For him to acknowledge that just based off a little clip, most fighters wouldn't even be paying attention to their opponent. It's warm up and little videos like that as they're preparing to compete themselves. So that kind of just shows the level Alex Pereira is operating on right now. It makes the finish even more impressive in my mind. And yeah, even on its own, I mean, for him to go out there, the first fight, any questions about it being a early stoppage? Man, oh man, that was not the case this time around. Zero controversy, zero doubt about this. Alex Pereira, for sure, the better fighter compared to Jiri Prohazka. We've now seen that twice over, and the best light heavyweight in the world, obviously, and on his way to being one of the best light heavyweights of all time. Look at that kick. Just amazing stuff. Herb Dean probably let him take a few too many shots there, but given what happened in the first fight, I think maybe a little good to let it go there. So, yeah, I mean, the highlight reel just continuing to grow for Potan, and he is a marvel. He is amazing, and it is so impressive watching him fight every single time.
Mike, what was the roar like in the T-Mobile Arena? You've seen many of these firsthand. I always say there's the connection of the strike or whatever it may be, the fight ending sequence. Then there's this vacuum where I think everyone gasps and then everyone yells out the roar. But what was this one like?
Yeah, well, we had the mini gasp before that, just seconds before, right at the end of the first.
The first.
People thought it was maybe over there. I couldn't really hear the bell go off for the end of the
Me
first
neither.
round. So for a second or two there, I think a lot of people thought the fight was over, but Gary's saved by the bell, but just for about a minute or so, because right when the second round begins, he gets absolutely smoked. So yeah, I think it was just like a little bit of, oh, maybe like he'll recover. Will this be a comeback? And nope, Alex showed he didn't have enough time to recover there and just completely shut his lights out. It was beautiful.
They said it was heard around the world. What about in the magnificence that is Morocco? Fada, what did you think when you saw and heard this thing?
Yeah, I mean, it was a near flawless performance from Alex Pereira. Outdid the first fight, gets the knockdown at the end of the first round, finishes him 18 seconds in with a head kick. I mean, what else can you say about Alex Pereira? He has proven to be one of the best things to happen to the UFC in a very long time, probably top 3 best things to ever happen to the UFC. Absolutely incredible, considering that people consistently talk about the hole in his game when it comes to the grappling. We've heard DC talk about it a lot. They're wondering what it's going to be like when he gets challenged there, but he has so much confidence. It just seems like when he's in there, those leg kicks he throws, his striking abilities, patience, his confidence, he just seems absolutely unstoppable right now. And I know we're going to get into this stuff later on, but seeing some of the betting odds, he seems like he's an underdog in a lot of upcoming potential matchups, which I don't know at this point if I would bet against Alex Pereira. I didn't then, and I didn't in the first Fury fight, but I just think the way this guy fights, the confidence he fights with, is absolutely incredible, and that was a flawless performance. I think outdid what everybody thought this could possibly be, so he's been spectacular.
Shout out to Cold Coffee on the 1s and 2s. As the panelist talks, we get the highlight. Not only does he provide it, he worked for it. You get that on this site, you get that on this show. That's what makes Spinning Back Clique such a quality show. Goes, how about you, man? I know you were upstairs, I was downstairs. I heard a big yell up there, but man, this was something else. Like, it still gives me goosebumps to see these highlights and to hear the experts talk about it.
Well, I think he's must-see TV, right? Whenever he's involved, the lead up, the actual fight, post-fight, he's just so entertaining, man. And in this particular fight, the way he stalks his prey, like a lion, he's just sitting there. He doesn't show very much emotion, and he's waiting for his strike. And when it comes, he takes advantage of it. But the patience is incredible. His timing is impeccable. This guy just knows fighting. Like, there's certain people that I think were born to do this. I think Alex Pereira is that guy. He's born to do this. another thing that just sort of stood out that I think got lost in the shuffle for me, I don't really know what Yuri's game plan was in this fight. I mean, I know he's been wild in the past. He kind of looked that way in this fight. I think Pereira probably could have capitalized even earlier, but I like that he just took the patient route in this one and he was able to get it done. But you're right. I was loud. I jumped up. That's just kind of the reaction that I get from this guy. And then you could tell he does the same thing to the fans. Like this dude is printing money for the UFC.
We got a chat room that accompanies the show. I'll try to get to some comments and questions. Make them good, and you'll get some priority. We also have the other chat as well. Forget what it's called. Let's just space it. Never mind. Karate Ted Toon says a naked head high kick is hard to land at this level. Oatmeal 26s. How many guys have to get flatlined before they realize you can't stand with Alex? Super chat. That's what it was. It just hit me. All right. Go ahead, Fada. What do you want to say?
Yeah, I just wanted to add that it's crazy how when you break down this fight and you're thinking like, all right, it's the leg kicks, it's the signature left hook, and it's like people can't stop it because nothing he does is telegraphed. Like you almost know it's coming, but you don't see it because he doesn't wind up like crazy. He's not lunging in. His technique is so crisp that it's almost like Jiri knew what to prepare for and just couldn't stop it. Got dropped, got hit with the leg kicks, got dropped to the left hook, and then the high kick, which we know that Pereira has in his arsenal, but he probably didn't see coming because nothing he does is telegraphed. So I think that's what's amazing about him.
For sure. Clinical, surgical. I mean, there's not enough words to describe how great this guy is when it comes to the striking. I want to ask you guys, right before the show, I was kind of just, scanning around and stuff. And I don't know, something always bugs me about when other fighters kind of chime in and just force their way in. And I see it from McGregor. I saw something from Izzy, and I saw something from John Jones. What are you getting at, George? Just say it. All right, this is what I'm getting at. Is Alex Pereira the biggest star in MMA? And do these other guys sense it? That's why they try to run interference on my man's accomplishments. Mike, what do you think?
He's up there. I mean, it's hard for me to say anyone's a bigger star than Conor McGregor while he's still like semi around. But if we're talking about people who are actually active and fighting, I mean, yeah, it's got to be, right? Like, besides the outliers that we might see a couple times here and there, John Jones, who fights very infrequently, Conor McGregor, who fights very infrequently. Yeah, those guys have a bigger history in the sport and a more proven track record of being draws, be it on pay-per-view or in arenas. But Alex Pereira is no doubt on his way and might be there right now if you're talking about guys who are consistently fighting. I mean, what more do you have to say? They give him the call for UFC 300. Yeah. And they're in desperate need of a headliner. Who's the first person they call when Conor McGregor falls out? It's Alex Pereira. So those kind of speak for themselves in terms of what the UFC thinks of the guy. Dana White was glowing about him at the post-fight press conference. We see that the gate from when Conor McGregor was supposed to be headlining this card didn't drop too dramatically. Yeah, it was like 4 or 5 million, but for them to still get the fourth biggest gate in UFC history with Pereira headlining, that again speaks for itself. So yeah, he's right up there. Maybe there's someone who could pull some metrics for someone else and prove me wrong, but judging off the eye test, what I see from our social media engagement, our video views, our story views, he's as intriguing for the fan base as anyone else in the sport right now.
Fada, would you agree? And I guess we'll be more specific. We know McGregor hasn't fought in a while, and John Jones he just dipped in once in the last 5 years as well. So maybe is it a 2-horse race, him and Makhachev or Poirier? I mean, what do you think?
I'm going to take a comment from over here. Ronald E. Smith says, most popular right now, yes, 100%, but the biggest star, no, it's still Conor, Izzy, and John Jones. I mean, I agree with Conor McGregor, of course, but I agree with the initial statement of the most popular right now. I think that's pretty true, especially how active he's been and the fact that he's been saving these cards and putting on the type of performances that he's been putting on. So definitely one of the biggest stars right now. I think it's something that we could observe moving forward in terms of whether, I mean, the pay-per-view numbers that do get revealed, social, all that stuff. But yeah, for sure. I mean, and the guy refuses to speak English, which is the best part about it. He's sticking true to himself, not playing any characters. People love him for who he is, and he delivers every single time, delivers for the UFC in terms of stepping up, delivers in his performances. So it's inevitable for his star to just continue growing, especially putting on these type of performances.
Yeah, I think you mentioned Makhachev too, George. I think you could probably throw Max Holloway in there as someone who's up there. that would be pretty intriguing for the people. He's the one that kind of stands out to me as well in terms of like a draw. Sean O'Malley, I'm sure, is on his way.
Oh,
Not quite there yet, but
Good one, too.
Ilya Topuria could be someone. But yeah, he's like the one that we're seeing right now. There's already evidence. That would kind of be my thought.
Goes, he's got the nickname, he's got the face paint, the walkout. You know, I think it might be him, but what about you? What do you think, Goes?
I think he's the most consistent star they have, right? Like we see him on a regular basis. We were just at the UFC Fan Expo, right? And that's kind of like one of the gauges for me. When they're all lined up for autographs, I look at it and I go, well, whose line would be longest, right? That's probably who people want to meet, who's popping. That could be maybe more towards in his favor. But if there were 5 doors and you knew these guys were all fighting at the same time, would you walk through Poatan's door first before you would walk through a John Jones door or a Conor McGregor or an Islam door? Probably not. I don't think so, right? It just depends maybe on the opponent. So I think he's the most consistent star right now. But guess what? In one fight, maybe 2, he might overtake some of these names that we're talking about.
But I guess just to chime in a little more, I mean, how much longer does he have, right? He turns 37, I think, next week. So we talk about some of these other names, Islam, Max, Sean O'Malley. They probably have a lot more runway. Like if you had to invest stock into one of those fighters for the long term, who would it be? Would it be Alex Pereira, knowing that in that 1-2 fights, maybe he could lose some of the steam if the fight doesn't go his way for the long term. So that's interesting as well. I don't think he has maybe as long in the game as a lot of these guys left, because as amazing as this run in the UFC is being, this man had an entire career in kickboxing before this whole thing happened. So you'd have to imagine the longevity for him isn't a ton.
Is that why maybe they're throwing around the move to heavyweight? What do you think about that, Fada? Should he consider that? It seemed like Dana White gave us 2 answers or 2 versions of, hey, this guy can do anything he wants, but maybe I don't recommend that. But what do you think?
Well, I think it's going to have to be something that excites John Jones. And I think if anybody can, it's Alex Pereira. I mean, based off of what we've seen, Jones's tweet and deletes, or actually he's kept a lot of his tweets recently, but based off of what he said about Pereira, it seems like he excites him a little bit more than a Tom Aspinall does. So John Jones at this point in his career, somebody who has nothing left to prove, needs someone that will get him excited, and Alex Pereira is that guy. If Alex Pereira can go on and defend his title one more time against an Ankalaev, because I do want to see that fight. I think one more title defense against like an Ankalaev, and whatever happens with Jones and Stipe, if you line that up timetable wise, yeah, it could entice John Jones. And if John Jones says he wants it and Pereira says he wants it, even though Dana White doesn't seem too on board, he could end up being a fan of that matchup. So you never know. I think at this point, because we don't know what John Jones's future is going to look like. I think Alex Pereira would want to move up to heavyweight regardless of who the champion is, Jones, Stipe, even if the winner of that retires and it ends up being Aspinall or Blades. I think he'd be down to move up to heavyweight regardless, because he seems to be wanting to make the most out of every single opportunity, racking up the belts, the stats, and all that good stuff. So that's what Pereira has done in such a short amount of time. So I don't hate it. I just want to, perhaps because Ankalaev seems like a clear-cut contender, I'd want to see that title defense, and then maybe we can see him move up to heavyweight. I'm not against it.
Goes, if he did go to heavyweight, John Jones is suggesting you got to go through Aspinall while I entertain Stipe. Do you like that, or do you say no, you just get the winner of Stipe and Jones, whoever that may be, and Aspinall be damned? You see how crazy that sounds, because he's the interim champ. What would you do with him? Because a move to heavyweight just doesn't really seem realistic at this point in time.
I don't like it. I think every time they bring it up, he should entertain it. I think that kind of adds to his legend a little bit. But in reality, I don't think it's something he should do, especially given his age. There is the big fight, right? I wouldn't risk anything but that. I would maybe take it if it were John Jones, but I wouldn't mess around with those guys. Look, there's a lot of guys in the heavyweight division that aren't going to be really too interested in a stand-up battle. And there's some guys with some that are great stand-up fighters, but can also use some wrestling. So I just think heavyweight's bad news. I think he should stick around at light heavyweight. And if for some reason John Jones is still around and they just want to do that one-off, then I think you kind of ride off into the sunset and maybe give that one a go. But I'd stick at light heavyweight, man. Heavyweight's another deal over there.
Yeah, I agree. Sky V's and El Daddy, who we met at the UFC Fan Expo. Shout out to him. He came over and said hello. He says heavyweight is truly a different animal. Ankalaev should be next, then talk about heavyweight. Yeah,
Mhm.
I couldn't agree more. I actually think heavyweight should just be something in the distant, of his options. But again, like Mike said, he turns 37 next week. Is he running out of time? I don't know, but the guy is active, and that's a good thing. Jiri Prochazka, he said something that I respect. He says, I need to evolve or maybe just stop fighting. But what would you do next with the guy? And yes, let's take into consideration he just took a massive headache, kick to the head, probably has a massive headache still. Mike, what would you do with Jiri?
I think there's two pretty obvious potential matchups for him. It's either Jamal Hill or Jan Blachowicz. I think those both make sense. Those two recovering from injuries in their own right, whenever maybe the timeline works for like later this year, beginning of next year. I just think that makes sense. All top 5 guys, all are looking to fight Alex Pereira again. So I think you just kind of go in that direction and see how it shakes out. But yeah, I think Yuri's like, he's got some fights. People forget he only has 6 fights in the UFC, right? And 2 of them have now been against Alex, both the losses. So he's got lots of names he can fight. But I understand where he was coming from in that post-fight video, saying that he needs to evolve. I mean, his style is so fun to watch, right? One of the most entertaining fighters in the organization. But as we've seen many times with certain guys like this, there is a ceiling to fighting with that style. And if you're going to go out there against freaking Alex Pereira of all people and fight with your hands down and be so reckless, like, it's just not going to work out for you, especially if you're not going to implement a high degree of grappling in that game plan as well. So yeah, if he wants to be that guy again, be that champion, he's got to change something up. You can't fight like this against a guy like Pereira. It might have worked against, Glover Teixeira, some of these other guys, but given what he's working with right now as the champion, he's got to change something up. But also for him too, I can't envision him getting another title shot as long as Alex holds that belt. He's in that kind of Rich Franklin zone, that Max Holloway, Alexander Volkanovski zone a little bit, even though, not even that, right? Like, both got finished in the second round of both fights. It's not like one of them was a controversial decision or something. So he's got some work to do here, and it does start with figuring out what type of fighter he wants to be.